Hollywood had its biggest year ever in 2018, despite streaming sites like Netflix and Hulu staking a claim on its territory. But thanks to this year's crop of amazing films, that box office record might not last for long. Here are the best movies of 2019 so far. If there were any concerns that writer-director Jordan Peele's Academy Award-winning debut Get Out was a fluke, they were quickly laid to rest by Us. In the film, a family is taunted by evil versions of themselves, and it's highly unsettling stuff.
What are you people?
It's us.
Critics were particularly stunned by Lupita Nyong'o's performance. The Lamplight Review noted that performances in genre pieces are often dismissed and disregarded, but make no mistake, Nyong'o's work in Us is some of the very best of her career. Critics were also impressed by Peele's deft mixing of comedic elements with nerve-jangling terror. A review in Splice Today succinctly summed up his achievement, claiming that Us combines masterful visuals with dense storytelling and a half-dozen instant classic sequences, and it's scary as hell. Right now, writer-director Nia DaCosta only has a handful of credits to her name, but thanks to Little Woods, her insanely self-assured debut feature, that's about to change in a hurry. DaCosta wrote the screenplay for Little Woods, a story about two troubled sisters. One of them is a convicted drug runner who's trying to get through her last few days of probation. Unfortunately, she's forced to return to the drug trade after her mother dies, leaving behind a hefty mortgage on the family home.
I know you're selling again, and I don't appreciate losing customers because you decided to get back in the business.
By casting Tessa Thompson in the lead role of Ollie, DaCosta nabbed one of the hottest actresses working today. Her performance was roundly praised, with descriptors like towering and riveting being par for the course. But it's DaCosta's keen eye for small details and sweeping cinematic shots that really had the critics singing her praises. And she's just getting started, too. In fact, she's all set to update the horror classic Candyman for producer Jordan Peele, and that should definitely be a sight to see. There's been more written about Avengers Endgame than any other cinematic release in recent memory, but the fact that it's a really good film is often buried beneath the reams of press and publicity. Avengers Endgame is brimming with jaw-dropping action, a surprising amount of humor, and the kind of emotional resonance that's sure to captivate die-hard fans and casual moviegoers alike.
You trust me? I do.
Many critics pegged Avengers Endgame as one of the greatest acts of fan service ever committed to film. And while familiarity with the MCU is pretty much required to make it a complete viewing experience, the movie is even more impressive for how well it works on its own terms. Flick Philosopher enthused that Avengers Endgame is a miraculous blend of grief and humor, big, bold, brash, then sneakily meta. Sift Pop stated in no uncertain terms just how much the film rocks, writing that the word epic gets thrown around so much that we've forgotten what it actually means. This movie is here to remind you. Meanwhile, the London Evening Standard apparently couldn't say enough good things about the film, writing that the only complaint about Avengers Endgame is that it raises the bar so high that there may well never be a superhero movie to match it. The John Wick series has never aspired to be high art, but it just might be the purest adrenaline delivery device in the history of modern cinema. 3 films in, director Chad Stahelski and star Keanu Reeves have really perfected the formula. John Wick Chapter 3 Parabellum gives die-hard action fans exactly what they came for, and then some. It's easy to see why Reeves' beleaguered hitman is swiftly becoming an icon. Let it suffice to say the actor's committed performance and Stahelski's sharp direction had critics applauding the third entry in the series. Scotland's The Herald wrote, Reeves has charisma to burn. By the time 2 hours are up, Wick is once again living up to the Latin in the title, desiring peace but preparing for war. Fetch, John, fetch. In its own highly positive review, the movie blog said, John Wick 3 is a buffet of action that only leaves you wanting more. Flickering Myth was just as enthusiastic, writing that, where most franchises begin to stumble around movie 3, John Wick Chapter 3 is the best in this highly entertaining series. The rom-com genre isn't exactly known for its inventive and intriguing storylines, but thanks to a whip-smart screenplay, Long Shot is something truly special. Seth Rogen stars as Fred Flarsky, a journalist who ends up reconnecting with his childhood babysitter, Charlotte Field, played by Charlize Theron. It turns out Charlotte's becoming a highly powerful political figure. In fact, she's gearing up for a presidential run. When Charlotte impulsively appoints Fred to be her speechwriter, events take a decidedly romantic turn. The chemistry between the two leads is really something to marvel at, as you can see for yourself.
You asked.
No, hey, I've hooked up with my fair share of world leaders too.
Critics absolutely loved the film, with the Daily Herald gushing, what are the odds that this zany rom-com would turn out to be the funniest crowd pleaser of 2019 so far? The Mail on Sunday was equally effusive in its praise. This is surely one of the most welcome surprises of the cinematic year, with Jonathan Levine's enjoyable film showing that unorthodox casting combinations can work and that there is still life in the romantic comedy. Hurrah! An updated family-friendly take on the King Arthur legend, The Kid Who Would Be King had a lot of things going for it right out of the gate. It's the second directorial effort from Joe Cornish, who helmed the excellent sci-fi comedy Attack the Block and co-wrote the original script for Marvel's Ant-Man. The film's casting is pure genius, with Sir Patrick Stewart as the wizard Merlin and Rebecca Ferguson as the evil enchantress Morgana. Louis Ashbourne Circus stars as a British schoolboy who stumbles upon the mystical sword Excalibur and must embrace his identity as a leader. Unfortunately, The Kid Who Would Be King was a commercial failure for Fox, but it certainly scored big with critics. The Guardian said, "The film is sentimental in all the right places and impossible to dislike." Meanwhile, One Room with a View praised Cornish's direction, claiming that he delivers a sword and sorcery adventure with the intelligence and sensitivity that kids' films deserve, but do not always receive. Hopefully, the film's poor box office performance won't diminish Cornish's future prospects. He's got talent to spare, and he's proven to be highly skilled at juggling comedic and dramatic elements in the service of his wholly unique visions. In order to succeed, Captain Marvel had to give us a compelling origin story and set the scene for Avengers Endgame. Indie filmmakers Anna Boden and Ryan Fleck rose to the occasion brilliantly, and their first big-budget tentpole movie is supremely entertaining. Thanks to an incredible script and a particularly brilliant lead performance from Oscar winner Brie Larson, the film is an absolute triumph. Critics commended Larson for bringing a strong sense of fun and swagger to the role of Carol Danvers, and many reviewers praised the on-screen chemistry between Larson and Samuel L. Jackson, who portrays a digitally de-aged Nick Fury.
How long you plan to be in town?
Oh, I'll be out of your hair as soon as I track down the Skrulls that are infiltrating your planet.
Skrulls?
Reviewers also loved Ben Mendelsohn's performance as the Skrull warrior Talos. The main Edge absolutely loved the film, noting how Captain Marvel could have floundered under the storytelling load it was asked to shoulder, but instead manages to mostly soar, giving us a fun and engaging narrative, some decent gags, and some solid action set pieces, along with a killer 90s soundtrack. Shazam might just be the warmest, friendliest, goofiest superhero film ever. Zachary Levi completely sells the notion of a 14-year-old inhabiting a superhero's body, bringing a wide-eyed wonder to the role.
Your phone's charged, your phone's charged, and your phone's charged. Well, you think you can do better? What the hell?
Critics were quick to embrace the film, with the Wall Street Journal writing that what Shazam lacks most obviously is gravitas and grimness, also bleakness, darkness, and relentless self-seriousness. In other words, it's terrific fun. Other critics noted that director David F. Sandberg masterfully juggled the film's humorous, emotional, and action-packed sequences. And some reviewers were excited about what this could mean for the future of the DC Extended Universe, with Salon boldly proclaiming that Shazam is a sign that it is at last ready to compete with Marvel. 2014's The Lego Movie was a surprise hit and definitely one of the best animated films of the year. In fact, if we're being honest, it's better than any film based on building block toys has any right to be. This year's The Lego Movie 2, the second part, saw the return of the first film's stellar voice cast, including Chris Pratt, Elizabeth Banks, Will Ferrell, and Will Arnett. It also added talent like Tiffany Haddish and Jason Momoa, who reprised his role as Aquaman from last year's live-action blockbuster. Film Inquiry had nothing but good things to say about Lego Movie 2, the second part, writing that, "It's a rare film, a perfectly crafted sequel that expands on the world and mythology of its predecessor, but stands firmly on its own little Lego legs." DreamWorks' How to Train Your Dragon franchise has garnered the kind of critical praise and box office receipts normally reserved for Pixar offerings, and there's a very good reason for that. Each of the films are technically accomplished and imbued with a depth of storytelling and emotion that's highly uncommon in kids' animated features. The 2010 original and 2014's How to Train Your Dragon 2 raked in over $1 billion worldwide. It took 5 long years for the trilogy capper, The Hidden World, to finally arrive, and guess what? The wait was well worth it, because the film is really good. Critics thought so too. Laramie Moviescope wrote that, "It's a nice story, combined with marvelous animation, which has only gotten more sophisticated and effective over the years, thanks to advances in technology." Meanwhile, the New York Post proclaimed that the movie could easily be called How to End Your Trilogy. Over the years, animation house Laika Studios has released quite a few films, and they've all been highly unique. There's the 2009 hit Coraline, 2012's Paranorman, and the well-received 2016 fantasy film Kubo and the Two Strings. For this year's Missing Link, the studio recruited Paranorman director Chris Butler and a talented voice cast featuring Hugh Jackman, Zach Galifianakis, and Zoe Saldana. It's the story of a Bigfoot-like creature who enlists famous explorers to lead him on a quest to find his relatives.
Can you take me there?
I give you my word.
The action-packed narrative and sweet humor really won over reviewers, but the eye-popping stop-motion animation is undoubtedly Missing Link's ace in the hole. The website Rave claimed, "Missing Link continues to prove not only Laika's visual mastery, but also the studio's commitment to telling emotionally resonant stories." Consequence of Sound was equally generous in its praise. As with so many Laika films, you'll come for the breathtaking animation, and you'll leave both enchanted and surprised by the big beating heart beneath it. Even the less effusive reviews couldn't help but gush over the film's visual style. Although the Washington Post claimed the film was missing something, it also assured readers that the movie is visually stunning, with well-realized characters and humor that really does work. Sadly, the film's lackluster box office performance might not be enough to keep the financially troubled animation house afloat. But as you can see, the film is absolutely beautiful to look at, and we strongly recommend watching the film if you haven't already.
A rope would be better.
I don't know. 3 more of them and we could build a ramp.
The Toy Story series offered up 3 near-perfect animated films in the space of 15 years, and after a flawless capper in Toy Story 3 and a 9-year gap, fans could be forgiven for being a bit wary of Toy Story 4.
So long, partner.
But Pixar did it once again, fielding a 4th entry in the saga of Woody, Buzz, and the Gang that's every bit as heartfelt, lovingly animated, and hilarious as its predecessors. Matthew Norman of the London Evening Standard wrote, "Toy Story 4 is so good it's criminal. The legislation it flouts is the law of diminishing returns, which governs movies with numbers after their names." The film's accolades were many and covered every aspect of its production, from the animation to the story to its treatment of its new characters. NBC News' Annie Bundell wrote, "Everyone gets time to tell their story, whether it's Duke Kaboom or Buzz Lightyear." Perhaps the highest praise delivered by Reno News and Review's Bob Grimm. "Is it the last one? Oh, come on, just keep making these movies forever." 2019 has been something special for Marvel Studios, with 3 critically acclaimed billion-dollar-plus grossing hits, an unprecedented feat to bring a close to the 3-phase Infinity Saga. The saga concluded with the sweet, action-packed coda Spider-Man Far From Home, the first live-action Spidey vehicle to ever break $1 billion at the global box office. Critics were taken with how the film played with the conventions of its genre, continually upending audience expectations, especially with respect to its alleged secondary hero, the devious Mysterio played by Jake Gyllenhaal, whose performance garnered widespread praise, as did star Tom Holland. The Spider-Man series remains a favorite among Marvel fans thanks to director John Watts' distinctive John Hughes-like tone. For all of its butt-kicking spectacle, many critics praised it as simply a delightful coming-of-age comedy, which just happened to also feature some of the most jaw-dropping post-credit scenes the MCU has yet offered. Producer Sam Raimi and director Alexandra Aja have a highly admirable horror pedigree, and Crawl sported a unique premise. Trapped in her father's home during a massive hurricane with floodwaters on the rise, a woman gets some unexpected company in the form of some hungry alligators. The flick milks this premise for all it's worth, and critics generally agreed that the result was a white-knuckle fright fest rich with tension and chills. Lead Kaya Scodelario is praised for her energetic performance, helping to whisk the film along from one terrifying set piece to the next. As many of the flick's champions noted, it's tough to go wrong in the hands of skilled filmmakers with all of these ingredients at their disposal. The movie blog's Emmanuel Noisette wrote, "When you combine a natural disaster, scary predators, and confined spaces, all through a personal human lens, you have a solid film on your hands." While the movie had its requisite share of detractors, its defenders noted that Crawl delivered exactly what it promised. Peter Vonderhaar of Houston Press wrote, "If you go into Crawl hoping to see a woman improbably outswim large, pissed-off reptiles or watch ATM thieves get messily devoured, you're in for one of the most enjoyable theatrical experiences of the year." Check out one of our newest videos right here. Plus, even more Looper videos about your favorite films are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.